Hey traders, what's going on? Jamie Saettele here. It is July 29th, and welcome to the Power Hour. Again, I'm Jamie Saettele with Scandinavian Capital Markets and SB Trade Desk. And let's start just with a general overview of the dollar. So I posted this chart on Twitter yesterday. This is a perfect example of what we call symmetry with median lines, okay? So again, to draw a pitchfork, you've got a high, low, or high, or a low, high, and low. In this case, obviously, we have a high, low, and high, and this is a longer-term structure, but you can see how, equidistant from the median line, you've got perfect support and perfect resistance, okay? Obviously, this is appropriate to discuss right now because just last week, in fact, it was last Wednesday, we nailed that parallel that was resistance last October and September. So, despite all the fundamentals of everyone talking about, dollar bullishness, blah, 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 positioning, big, consensus dollar bears, we have indeed rolled over, okay? Now, the question is, where would support come into play? So my thinking, and again, this is the same chart with the same structure, but with a little more detail. I'm looking towards the top side of this trend line, which was former resistance. Okay, that blue line right there. That's also going to come in just under the 50-day average. So at the moment, that's going to be about 11,780 or so. You've got some decent horizontal levels there. You've got former resistance here. You've got a minor support here back from December. So generally speaking, I am looking lower in the dollar until we get there or until there's reason to change that opinion. And that could be something like a big, upside reversal, outside bullish day. Obviously, it's going to be, depend on the specific pairs. So let's zoom in to DXY. So here we're working with a bullish fork, and I'm on an hourly chart here. Let's go to a 4 hour so you can see the whole thing. And again, this is a opposite example. So we've got low, high, low, right? So we've got that bullish fork in play, and we nailed that median line and pulled back. Again, that was last Wednesday, the 21st. We also filled a gap, or what I call an uncovered close, back from April. That's where we were looking for resistance, just above 93. We hit 93.19. We've pulled back. It's just textbook. And you can see here we've got an even shorter term structure. So you can see the, what I call the multiple degrees of trend with median lines. And you can see this center line right here, which was support. I guess that would have been 2 days ago. We bounced. If we get a little bounce, which we're bouncing here early in the U.S. session, you're going to look for resistance there. It's going to be about 92.30, which is actually in line with this low. So how does this all play into a trade setup? Well, for euro, you'd be looking to, buy a dip on euro once DXY bounced up to about 92.30. Support for DXY probably 91.50.75. And if you just look to the left of the chart, you can see the big levels, right? That was almost a year ago, last August. Big high there, congestion here, low here back in late June. And that's also going to intersect with your parallel from this short-term bearish fork. So you've got a lot there, well-defined horizontal levels along with parallels to look for support. All right, so again, two levels to trade over the next few days or week. 92.30 resistance, 91.50.75 support for DXY. So if we look at euro, that is going to play into probably, I'd give it, this is relatively wide range, but looking at 119.50 to 90. Again, just well-defined horizontal levels along with a 38.2 retrace. You've got the high here from June 25th in the middle of that zone. So that's kind of where I'm thinking you're going to get the first really big test for Euro. And if I bring in, this actually addresses a question that was asked on Twitter about VWAP, okay, volume weighted average price. And the question was, how do I get that on my charts? Well, this is a program here, TradeStation. I'm not sure if they have this on, hold on, I'm not sure if they have this on TradingView, but you can search for it. It's just VWAP, VWAP, and this is an anchored VWAP, okay, that we'd be looking at. So let me bring that back in, and you can see here I have it anchored to the high, so it's essentially a moving average, but it weights it towards volume, and that's going to be on futures 1960, which is equivalent to, I'd say, about 1940 for the spot price, okay, and you've got 2021 or year-to-date VWAP a little higher, about 120.60. Okay, I'll get into the VWAP stuff here in a bit, but the question, asking where you find it, try to look it up on TradingView. Other than that, I'm not going to have an answer for you, but the levels that you're going to be looking at, it's about 1960, which again aligns with your price resistance. Okay. So that is what we're looking at with Euro. Now, dollar Swiss is not one that I look at a ton, but in this case, I'm kind of looking at it as a clue to where we might find resistance for European FX, right? And actually, right now, we have met the level of 2 equal legs down. You can see here, A, B, C, 2 equal legs down, 90.75. That's literally right where we're trading. 618 of the latest leg up is 90.59. So, with my general dollar view, that we're heading a bit lower over the next few days to week, this might be premature, but I would keep an eye on this, because if we did get a big reversal from this level, then that might, necessitate a change in view for the dollar in general, notably against Europe. So dollar SEK, Euro, and obviously dollar Swiss. All right, so let's look at cable, because I'm loving this cable chart right here. This is again, a perfect pitchfork. Where's that low? Right on the median line, and we are almost all the way up to the upper parallel, which is 140. Just look across the chart, highlighted. You can see 140, absolutely perfect. Huge level, not just a psychological barrier, but the chart tells a story here. Look at all that resistance, support, resistance, and we're very close. So again, we traded up to 39.73. We're currently 39.60. We're getting awfully close to that level. 618 is 39.90. So it doesn't get bigger than this. Fib, horizontal level, psychological level, upper parallel, just a massive level to pay attention to with cable. And that will bring me as well into seasonality. So this is weekly seasonality for British pound. And starting after this week, we have an extremely bearish seasonal, tailwind, if you will, on the downside, basically for the first 2 weeks of August. So this sets up very well for a short, possibly into 140 for British pound. So keep that 140 level in mind. Okay, let's take a look at Aussie now. Aussie, I'm kind of up in the air on this. 74.15 is absolutely massive. So not only is it this high, and we've talked about the 74.15 level for months, right? You had the September high at 74.15. You had 2 equal legs down from the high here. But once we went through that, I figured that we were kind of, about to fall apart. But you can see today we traded into that level and we're coming off right away. So if we were to finish with, a down day today, or even just hold below the 74.15 level, I'd be looking to short going into the end of the week tomorrow. So 2 equal legs up is 74.27. but you can see here it was support earlier in the month, and we hit it this morning, and we are now starting to come off. I'm actually surprised that Aussie hasn't come off a lot more given what's happening in the Chinese equity markets. And if you've been paying attention to that, let me bring in FXY real fast, or FXI, excuse me. Let's get rid of this stuff here. All right, so FXI, which is just the large cap China ETF. All right, if I overlay Aussie with this, generally speaking, they're going to trend together. But look what's happened with this Chinese equity ETF. Okay, just the last month, absolutely off a cliff. Aussie has, has held up extremely well, all things considered. So I don't know. We've had a huge bounce. I think yesterday this was up something on the order of 7 or 8%. Down a little bit overnight here, about to open, but if we do get another leg down, you might get that capitulation in Aussie and have a very sharp leg lower in Australian dollar. So, given the level that Aussie's at, and the pressures in the Chinese equity markets, that is something to keep in mind. Okay, dollar CAD. The only thing I'm paying attention to a dollar CAD is being aware of this 50-day average, top side of this trend line, which we broke. So 6182 is in line with that 50-day average. It's about 2312. You got lows down here. Again, that's kind of, it's quite a ways away. But if we got down to that level, I'd be interested in dollar CAD and buying a dip against, kind of a bigger swing position. But again, that's very much a watch list, kind of on the radar type of deal. If we look at the VWAPs for Euro futures, hit support VWAP from the March 2020 low. Okay, so again, we have that support. British pound, VWAP from the September 2020 low. But again, we're looking for that 140 resistance. Aussie, VWAP from the March 2020 low. And if that breaks, it's kind of all hell breaks loose on the downside, in my opinion. Dollar CAD, trading into that VWAP, year-to-date VWAP, which is here. That thick line is always what I have denoted as year-to-date VWAP. And, this is a little tricky because futures are quoted CAD dollar rather than dollar CAD, but the VWAP from the high, which would be dollar CAD low, is a little bit higher. Be about in line with the 618 level that we just talked about, just above 123. So again, this is all pointing to the same kind of outcome, which is a bit more dollar weakness, maybe over the next week or so before we really, kind of want to think about getting bulled up again on the dollar. And, pay attention to the headlines. Once people start getting comfortable with, with dollar weakness, again, then it's probably time to go the other way, especially given the seasonal tailwind that I talked about, which, is actually dollar bullish for most currencies through August. Okay, so Kenneth Jones has a very broad question. What is the use of indicators and how do we use them? Well, first of all, almost all indicators are going to be price-based, okay? Either price or volume or both. In the case of volume-weighted average price, it is volume and price, but how to use them, it's always going to be secondary to price itself and price pattern. But how to use them, you're trying to identify support, resistance, basically provide a point of reference from which to take a view. That's kind of the best way I can put it. All right, let's get into a non-dollar cross, which I'm following closely, and that's pound yen. So pound yen is into a massive, massive level. So last week we actually put out a bullish note here because we had hit, one, just took out this low from March, two, hit a trend line. So trying to answer Ken's question here about the use of indicators. So this was all price-based, right? We hit this low, support, trend line, price-based, but now the indicator comes in, and that's the 50-day average, right? So the 50-day average, which did provide support back here in December, was support back here in April, was resistance here in earlier this month. We're back at it. So this would be a combination of price-based and indicator-based, right? 50-day average and a well-defined level, high here from April, high here from July 13th. So we're looking at this as, you know, a potential pivot, right? Do you just short here? You could. It depends. You know, everyone's going to have a different entry method. Myself, I'm looking for something, you know, something of a reversal bar of some sort. This is a 4-hour chart. You know, I'm looking for us to put in a reversal bar and then break that, you know, that period's low. We haven't done that, and for me, that would be a short entry. Okay, stop against the high. We haven't done that yet, but again, we're at the level, so keep this on your radar. Let's move to Bitcoin. All right, so Bitcoin, I'm actually going to go back into a volume weighted average price situation here. All right. Okay, so Bitcoin, as I do this webinar, is into a massive, massive level. Again, volume weighted average price from the high and 2021 volume weighted average price. So you can think of the year-to-date volume weighted average price as kind of a, you know, a bull bear dividing point, if you will. And once you get into that level, you know, look for it to provide support if you're coming from above and resistance from below. In this case, that 42,000 level is not just the VWAP, but also a significant, you know, horizontal level where we've shown the market trade from that level. So this was back in January. Resistance was registered there in mid-June. We had support there before we kind of fell apart back in May. So if you're following Bitcoin, and I know a lot of people are, pay attention over the next few days. If we get a spike up into that 42,000 level, I'd be fading that, okay? Would not be a time to turn bullish. Also, we have a very clear Elliott pattern here, okay? Elliott, you know, referring to Elliott wave, got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 waves down, A, B, C, 3 waves up, okay? So this is kind of a textbook short setup, if you will. But again, you want to see a show of resistance into this 42,000 level. Moving on. This is a good question. Eurocad was a trade that we were involved in a couple weeks ago. And the question is, now that it's retraced almost the whole move, is this ascending trend line something we can go long against? So let's take a look at that Eurocad chart. That's a great question. All right, so the ascending trend line you are referring to is probably this one. And the specific question is, can we go long against that level? I would not be doing that right here because we haven't really held it. What I would say, go to a weekly chart. So this is a good example of what we call weekly reversal support, which, again, take the low week and the close, plot a line across that close. In this case, it's 46.87. That actually comes in line with the lower parallel, right? And again, look at this pitchfork. We hit that resistance in the median line and came right off. So your next logical place to look for the next pivot or support would be at that lower parallel, which again is in line with that weekly reversal support and this low. So, to answer that question, no, I would not be going long against that ascending trend line. I would be looking a bit lower towards 46.90. If you get there, great. You get an opportunistic chance to buy. If you don't get there, then move on, and there will be plenty of other opportunities. Silver, all right, this is spot silver, okay? I rarely trade silver, but this is an interesting short opportunity. You've got trend line, underside of that trend line is a bit higher. You've got downward sloping trend line intersecting that. You've got a well-defined horizontal, former support. We're about there. So look for resistance just, a bit higher and watch for a reversal up here. Okay, so silver is a possible short opportunity up into this level. Rizwan, what's going on? Thank you. That's very kind of you to say. How are you? I haven't seen you around in a long time. Thank you for the compliment. It says that I am have golden tweets. I don't know about that, but I appreciate it. All right, final deal that we're going to look at here. I want to take a look at the Nasdaq. It's kind of the dog days of summer with equity markets pretty slow. However, there is one thing I am following in U.S. equities, and that is this channel in the Nasdaq from the September low. Okay. Again, simple channel. Was resistance back here in January. There's resistance again in February. Almost got there earlier this month. Almost got there just 2 days ago. I would love to see, a spike up into this level. Get everybody sucked in and, get some reversal evidence. Other than that, I am not watching equities all that much. I don't have much of an opinion. I'm just looking for, looking to be opportunistic, put it that way. Okay. So I'd love to get up into this level and get some reversal evidence. We are getting some divergence with momentum, in this case RSI, but nothing to write home about here just yet. And by the way, if we did start to sell off, I'd be looking at this level about 14,060. This is Nasdaq futures as kind of your huge test for support. Simply former highs and the center line from this channel. Okay, it's also where we took off from earlier in June. Okay, so let's see what is going on here as U.S. markets have opened. Still, what my big focus here, you may have gathered it, but is British pound. Okay, as we get into this 140 level, it's absolutely massive. That's what I'm watching the most, and there's so much lining up for a possible short. Again, all the various resistance, methods, if you will, that are identifying 140 as a key level, and that seasonality that we have, right? Basically, some of the most bearish weeks of the year are the next 2 weeks for cable. Okay, so keep 140 in mind. And that is all I've got. So until next time, good luck. And thank you very much for joining me, Jamie Saettele, for your FX Power Hour. All right, take care.